your username and password every time.
Was it pretty like user friendly once you got in? 'Cause
Yes.
I'll keep an eye and see if there's any other online ones like this
Okay.
for you guys.
It was informative.
Good.
So I thought it was kind of fun to.
I had to take the class when it wasn't online, so, and it was all day.
Yeah, not quite as fun.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I could sit in a comfy chair with my feet up and just go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So do you want to hear the message the beaker is gonna give us from the Muppets?
Oh, are we gonna get a message?
No, I gotta turn it off because it'll be bad. Why?
So I know that Zach's not here tonight. Who else isn't here?
Oh,
This
Zach's
is
not here tonight.
Yeah, Zach's not here.
mostly so
Okay,
that you guys
um,
can see it, but it's gonna be on
Commissioner
Zoom.
Snow.
Okay.
For some
Snow
reason, I
better
can't
be
connect it
here. I sent him a text.
So,
I said, get
the
there.
presentation's already open.
We'll see if he
All you'll need
responds.
to do is,
And I didn't
Just
hear
share the
anything from
screen.
Commissioner Costello. And
Okay.
Commissioner
Just share.
Erickson is attending online.
Oh, okay.
To go through it.
and then you can use
He
your
should
code.
be here.
I know that Zach's got an open house in Murray that he had to go to, so.
Yeah, I tried connecting for some reason.
That's right. I feel like I vaguely remember. Did he mention that at the last?
Just this
meeting?
time.
I don't know, but he sent me a message and took me, so.
Hi, it's Candace, just so you know I'm here.
Hi, Candace.
Hi,
We're glad you're here.
thanks. I'm good to see your small little faces on my computer.
That's the last simple time.
It is close, 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes.
Okay, I don't need to hear all of that, so stop it. What's this doing?
What is it?
What's so special about 6 and unlocking that door? Like, is
Because if
someone
I
gonna be
unlock it
coming around?
before, it'll still lock again. So it'll be lower.
Oh, wow. I can tell.
Yeah, I'm expecting a ball.
Yes.
Are you?
No, not on this, I'm not.
Yeah, this was one of those things where
I
I'm like,
can't, I can't,
oh,
yeah,
Lord.
I can't imagine anybody's gonna wanna follow along. But they'll complain later, but.
Are there any, I mean, are there something?
The change, I mean, it's legislative, it's not like we have much of a choice anyway, so.
Hmm?
Okay, you didn't hear anything from Colleen?
I didn't. Only from Zach. But it's almost 6, so we're gonna start our time. We have 4. Are we okay to move forward with 4 commissioners? Okay.
So Snow, did she say Snow responded and he
Uh-huh,
wasn't
it wasn't
coming?
coming.
I'm gonna beat him about the face and neck.
Just pretending that I know the answers.
Well, I'm glad I'm here then.
No more
Okay.
Should be.
frustrated.
Don't tell me you're coming and then don't show up. I might get mad about it.
No, no, that's a definite all my legal affairs.
And then I painstakingly looked at those minutes.
Oh,
Did you?
yeah,
It's long.
yeah. That's because of everything that,
Transpired
Yeah.
that day.
there was a reason for that. and
Did
it's
you
like
want to go like
back and
this?
forth, it's like, stop. Okay, I tried during the whole thing.
I
to do
know,
that,
it was
it
so
didn't work.
sad, wasn't it?
Well, it's 6 o'clock. I would like to call the meeting of the Midvale Planning and Zoning Commission to order. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, we can. Chair Tippett,
Here.
Vice Chair Anderson,
Here,
Commissioner Benson,
Here,
and Commissioner Erickson.
Here.
That takes care of that. I know that Zach's excused.
Oh, yep, sorry. And Commissioner Snow is also excused.
Great. Okay, that takes us to our first item on our agenda, which is the review and approval of minutes of August 11th. Has that everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, are there any corrections or additions?
I didn't see any.
I didn't see any. I think there was a spelling something, but it wasn't important.
It is the candy spelling.
Okay. If there are no corrections or additions, I'll entertain a motion to have those approved.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of August 11th, 2021.
I second. I wasn't there, but I read them.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Can we get a vote on approval? It's just a voice vote.
Yeah, so you can just say,
Any, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay, they have been approved. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to our public hearing. Matter number 2, which is a text amendment. It's a zoning ordinance text amendment, citywide text amendment modifying accessory dwellings units in chapter 17 of the Midvale City Municipal Code. Midvale City is the applicant. Nate Rockwood is the community development director who will be presenting.
Thank you. Thanks for all being here for this item. I am going to share the item. All right. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is a text amendment, as you said, to not all the zones, but most of all the zones, based off of Oh, I see what you're saying. There we go. Okay. Based off of HB 82, which was passed this year in the legislature, what it requires is that all cities need to allow for internal accessory dwelling units, which we're calling IADUs, in any area that's zoned as a primary residential zone. This one has a specific date of October 1st when it becomes effective. So the timing on this is kind of critical. If the city weren't to get it into the code, accessory dwelling units would still be allowed. We just wouldn't have the regulations that the state allows us to put in place. So they could be happening legally without some of the oversight that the legislature allowed. So by you coming in tonight, if you make a favorable recommendation on this to the city council can discuss it and then make a final action on it in the next 2 meetings and meet that October 1st deadline. So I know everybody probably read, how many pages was it?
235.
235.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. So luckily you weren't the one going through and typing all that because that was me. And it was fun. So what we've done here is the city already in several of the zones, and actually a lot of the zones, already allowed external accessory dwelling units. and had criteria for what you had to do in order to have one of those exterior dwelling units. The legislature doesn't have anything to do with those exterior. It was all about having to allow these interior units. So what it is inside a detached single family home, any home that meets that qualification. There's a lot of oddities to this, but if the primary resident is the owner of that house, they have the ability to create a internal accessory dwelling unit there. The city can't regulate that. But the legislature did allow certain regulations the city could put in place. And so I'll kind of go through those. It has to meet all of the health, building, fire codes, and have a rental agreement for more than 30 days. So this can't be short-term rentals. And the state actually allows, in this case, cities to check websites to see if they're being rented as short-term rentals. That was something that hasn't been allowed in the past. So that actually is a change, and otherwise you'd never really be able to catch them. And then it says the city may not regulate the total internal size of the ADU, the lot size, or the frontage, but then within the code itself, then it does have a lot size limitation. What that means is the city can't determine that, but the state has determined what that is. And so, sorry, I have to keep moving the bar around so I can see my slide. So the city, since this is on such a short timeline, then I did go to the council members and ask them, what their thoughts were on this, if they wanted to enact all of these, if they didn't, sort of. So I had so I wasn't going through this, 200 and whatever pages repeatedly each time they changed their mind. So the city council in general agreed that they wanted to put in place most of the criteria that the state allows. So we will require, or we're recommending requiring a business license, that the exterior not be altered, still has to look like a single family home. And that for the ADU, you have to have an additional parking spot for that's on site. This also means if well, I'll get into parking in a little bit. Can't be, the city can prohibit that they have separate utility meters, and so that is included in the code. City could not allow it in mobile homes, or if there's a failing septic tank, or then on a lot of 6,000 square feet or less. So all of that is included in the code in each one of these zones that it's applicable in. And then I'll get into the 75% in a minute. As I said, you could use a short-term rental website to check to make sure that they're not being used for vacation rentals, nightly rentals. And then there's a series of things that you can do that you're allowed to do as a city if they're not in compliance with that. And that would all happen through the business licensing process. So staff is recommending all of those items that I went through. The one that staff is not recommending is the restriction of the 75% threshold. So what that is the code says this applies to, you have to apply it to at least 75% of the city that allows residential use as a primary use. It's not single family residential, it's all residential, which is why we had to cover all of the zones. And so what we did is we went through and looked at any of the zones that allowed single family in the zone. And then we went into the intent of that zone, and every one of them said single family is a primary, residential is a primary use in this zone. So that's how we decided which zones to apply it to. But the city could, without, it doesn't have to specify why, but it could decide that 25% of these residential areas are restricted, and we could limit having internal accessory dwelling units in those areas. Now, how to determine why that is and where that should be, as we kind of looked at it from staff, we weren't really sure where or why we would use that. There might be instances where that comes up. And so talking with council members and talking with staff, it seems like it makes sense to kind of reserve that ability. If we see in the future that there is some problem for some reason where these are going in, Planning Commission could make a recommendation to City Council to use that 25% restriction in those areas. The only thing we could, there could be reasons why it doesn't work related to crime or something like that. We're just not sure. Most of these will kind of be self-regulating because of the parking and because of the lot size requirements. So you think about like the Bingham Junction zone over there. Most of those houses are meeting the minimum parking requirements now. So if they had to add one more space on site, they just couldn't do it. So a lot of those places where we know we're having parking issues with people parking on the street or not even being able to find parking on the street, most of those areas, if not all of them, would probably self-regulate, and these accessory dwelling units wouldn't work in those areas. Now, if we find that they do and people are making them, maybe that's a good reason to use the exemption. The other thing is we talked about whether the single family detached should be allowed to have an internal and an external, or if we just want to say one or the other, or get rid of external altogether. What we're recommending now is if they can make those work independently, they can make the parking work, they can make all the setbacks work for the external one, then we would allow it. So we'd allow two. We could always come back and change that at some other point if it becomes a problem. But I think that's the recommendation now. These are all the zones that is in. So you should see very similar language in all of these different zones. Some of them have been adjusted as the zones are quite different, but they should be all basically regulating the same thing and allowing the same thing in the zones. It's just a zoning map. So really quickly, I won't spend too much more time on this, but what we did in the definitions section of the code is we removed accessory apartments and accessory building occupied and created external accessory dwelling units, external accessory dwelling units, and then accessory structured unoccupied. So that kind of splits up the definition, and then we've carried that throughout all the documents. So that's how we distinguish between the two. And then again, we've defined primary residential, and then used the definition of a primary dwelling from the actual state code. And that's where it means that it has to be detached and it has to be occupied by the primary resident, the owner of record. So that's a little bit different than sometimes when you think of how a primary residential would be exempt from property tax. If you're a renter, you're still considered primary resident in that house. And so you're exempt from the property tax. This is a different definition, primary dwelling. So that's how that's regulated. And that helps us a lot when we go through the records and look at the business licenses. So this is how it's regulated. If you read through, you would see this language over and over in there for the internal, very similar for the external. If you have any questions on how we did that, then I'd be happy to answer them. I could see that you guys are all dying to ask questions, right?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
So what do you do if you know this is in total violation? So you've got a home where somebody's single family. The neighborhood is not zoned for other than single family. You've got 4 people living in the house. He's walled off an area that doesn't even have a window
Okay.
or anything like that, or the parking. How do we enforce that? There's no parking. We've got 4 people living in one house, and he's done things inside so that all these people can be in there without the city knowing.
Yeah, I think that there's several code enforcement that we have in place now that we could actually,
Would this change anything?
this wouldn't change any of this.
Okay,
They would have to get a business license to do what they're doing,
Yeah,
but
right.
what they're doing doesn't qualify under
right.
this anyways. So if there's something that we know about like that, you should let us know and we could send
Oh,
code
it's a big
enforcement
one.
out
Okay.
there.
All right, we'll do
And if
that
I can,
after.
if I
But
can
this
jump,
wouldn't have anything to do, it wouldn't change anything with that.
so.
It is so bad there.
So there's probably a few facts that are missing before we can make a judgment about whether or not there's a violation. So if it's been broken up into dwelling units where everyone has their own kitchen and things along those lines, that's going to be a violation and a problem. However, there's nothing, because we don't have a definition of family or definition of maximum occupancy amount per home.
Okay,
There's nothing that would prevent someone per se from renting a home with roommates. So if these are 4 roommates that are living together and sharing the same kitchen area and the same bathroom and things like that, that wouldn't be prohibited by our current code.
okay.
And it wouldn't change anything with
Okay.
this. This is essentially allowing for a mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law dwelling, okay, I got
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
So just quickly on the parking, requires 1 off street parking space for each. So if they had 1 internal and 1 external, it would require 1 for each. If they converted the garage into the internal, they would still need to provide the required parking for the primary dwelling. So if there's two spots required for the primary, you would require a 3rd, and if so, there would have to be that. That's kind of it. I mean, it's a pretty, it goes through all the different zones, and it has an impact for sure. But there's not a whole lot more detail to it than that, unless you have any questions. Yes.
Candace has a question.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about exterior modifications for the interior accessory dwelling unit, let's say you were going to make an entrance to, say, a basement apartment. Would you be able to install a staircase down in the front part of the house, or would it have to go into the back?
I don't.
I mean,
think
is it that detailed?
No, it's not that detailed.
Okay.
It basically, it's very broad in just saying that you can't change it so that it looks, so that it modifies it so it doesn't look like a single family home.
Gotcha.
So I'm
It's
not sure what that
maintaining
means.
So it's more maintaining the footprint and not as much the use of it. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's one where we'll have to see how they define what that is, because it just really isn't all that defined.
Yeah, because there are existing homes in Midvale, I know, where they have a basement apartment, or they have an entrance to the basement from the exterior, and there's a physical stairway down in the front of the house versus the rear. And so I was just wondering if you added that, if that would be a violation of it. And it might be a per case basis, not that there's going to be a huge amount of these coming up, but
Yeah, I agree.
okay. I was just bringing it up in case it became a thing.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if there's already mother-in-law apartments and homes before that, are they going to be grandfathered in? Are they going to be okay? Or are they going to have to get a business license and go forward from there?
It depends if they rent it. I mean, if they're using it for family
Then
members,
they don't have to.
then
worry
they
about
don't have to. If they're going to rent it, yeah, they would have to,
Okay.
and they
it. And so they won't be grandfathered in. They will have to come forward and get a business
Yeah.
license. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Any other
all I have.
questions? Any comments?
Even though I did check with council on these, if there's any of these recommendations that the planning commission doesn't agree with or wants to change, then it is completely up to you to make the recommendation how you want.
Well, we don't have any comments right now. We do need to open this up for a public hearing. So let's go ahead and do that.
Great. I move that we close the public hearing since no one's here.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. The public hearing is now closed. Commissioners, again, I'll ask if you have any questions or comments. Seeing none,
I'm not sure about the motion. Which one
um,
Did you want to hear from,
Legal.
Garrett, this is legislative, isn't it, Garrett? Do we need to hear anything else?
Yeah, that's it. So you're just making a recommendation to
Yeah.
the city council.
Okay. Yep, I move that we forward a recommendation to the city council to approve the proposed amendments to ADU language in the affected zones as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we get a vote, please, Kate?
yes. Vice Chair Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Okay, that's been, we will go ahead and move forward with our recommendation to the city council.
Great, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Now, what do we need to do?
Well, no, we don't have to do anything else with that. Okay, so that leaves us with our third item of business, which is upcoming meetings and projects.
Great. So there will be obviously a few more meetings coming up. We do have several projects that are being have been submitted. I just wanted to give the Planning Commission an update. I gave the same update to the City Council last night, but wanted to give the Planning Commission the update on the Planning Division. As you notice, there is no planners here today. Interesting to have a Planning Commission with no planners. But we are in the process of hiring planners and bringing new planners in. So we have hired planner 2, Elizabeth Arnold, who started last week and is a planner that has worked in, has been working up in Wasatch County and joined the city staff. And she will be good. She has a master's degree in planning from the U. So we're excited to have her on board. We've also had our new planning director accepted an offer. Adam Olson will start on September 7th. He is the planning director currently of American Fork. He's got over 10 years of experience as a planning director. So we're excited to get him on board. And then we have a posting right now for a senior planner, which we hope we'll have some good applicants for and get that filled soon. In addition to that, we had a lot of text amendments that we've been working on. There's more legislative bills that were changed that we need to go through. Luckily, they don't have the deadline, that the October deadline. So we have a little bit more time, but we do need to get those through. And so the city has hired a contract planner, her name is Hannah Tyler. And she was senior planner, deputy planning director up at Park City when I worked there. So I've worked with her a lot. She's independent now, and so I was able to hire her to help us move a lot of these text amendments through. And then she'll actually take on some of the whole projects. So you'll see her presenting the projects, both here in Planning Commission and to City Council. But she's just helping out, but she's very good, and was the lead planner on a lot of the resort-based developments and some of the bigger hotels that have come up there. So extremely experienced, and able to just jump right in, learn our code, and start making recommendations. So we're trying to do the best we can to not let things fall through the cracks and to keep the service level as high as we can. Planning keeps moving ahead. There's a lot of applications that keep coming in. So we'll continue to be busy through the rest of the year. So that's the updates that I have for you now. And then if you have any questions for me, happy to answer those. I'll be doing a lot of the presenting a lot of the items for the next little bit as we bring everybody on board. So hopefully we get to the point where I don't have to do that. But for now, I'm happy to to present items to you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kate, because we have someone come in after our meeting started, our meeting is done, but if you have some comments you'd like to make to the Planning Commission, we'd like to have you come forward. If there's something you'd like to.
Yeah, a little late. I'm Mike Davis.
Please come up and speak to the mic, give us
Yep,
your
do
name.
that. Mike Davis, and I'm at 518 East Fort Union Boulevard. And I was wondering, is there a date for the new ADU law?
October 1st.
October 1st. And is it online, the text, or?
No, for the city. So you want to answer that?
We just reviewed it tonight with the updates. We are making a recommendation to the city council. I'm sure they will probably be hearing about that at their next meeting. So that might be a good time for you to go so that you can hear the discussion about what that is and what the city's changing.
Okay,
Since we've kind of already covered it before you arrived. So
Yeah.
I would suggest that maybe you go to the city council to their next meeting.
okay, great, I can do that. All right,
And it'll be presented at both city council meetings in September. We'll present it
Oh.
twice so that the public.
all right, a little early. Okay, super, thank you.
Thank you though for coming. We appreciate you coming to our meeting.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, with that, I think we can go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 6:30.
I mean, if we adjourn the meeting at 6:30.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. I'll be at the next meeting. I promise.
Awesome.
I had a stress dream about this one that I was late again. Have a nice 2 weeks.
Ace.
Yeah.